Welcome to Dynamic Cardiology Station number 1. This one we chose because it's pretty straightforward, but also involves a few of the things that you need to know how to do. Some of the things you want to make sure is, again, getting your patient on the monitor, 3-lead, 12-lead, or pads within 30 seconds of starting the station. What you also want to make sure to do is you are always checking your patient's pulse. You want to decide whether or not your patient's lost their pulse, all while maintaining visualization of the monitor. You need to call out your rhythms. You need to appropriately treat your patient, whether they need defibrillation, CPR, or simply a medication, and moving on. Every time you have a rhythm change on your monitor, check for your patient's pulse. Even if it's something like VFib, which we know they probably won't have one, it's a good thing to get into a rhythm of doing, just to make sure every time your rhythm changes, that you're just checking for a pulse. Another reason you want to be checking for a pulse on your patient all the time is because you want to make sure that it's not PEA. You know that you have PEA because you will have electricity on the monitor. What I mean by that is a rhythm on the monitor, but your patient will not have a pulse. What I mean by that is the electrical current is not causing muscular involvement. So just because the electricity is going off doesn't always necessarily mean the heart is actually squeezing or beating. So what you will do is if you have PEA on the monitor, you will be seeing something on the monitor, some electrical movement, like behind me that shows a third degree heart block. But if you are feeling for a pulse, you don't have one. So you would say a third degree heart block condition, PEA. If you now have a pulse when you didn't have one, check blood pressure immediately. You want to make sure that that pulse is perfusing enough and make sure that the blood pressure is supporting that. Then if you do have a blood pressure, you start your ROSC protocols according to ACLS guidelines, which you will see at the end of this video, me performing.
Welcome to Dynamic Cardiology. You will have 10 minutes to complete the station. Do you have any questions?
No.
Your patient is a 65-year-old male with the chief complaint of feeling dizzy and weak. The patient's heart rate is 37, blood pressure 74/30, O2 sat is 88% on room air. The patient is pale, cool, and diaphoretic with clear lung sounds. The patient is currently responsive and conscious. You may begin.
First things first, BSI scene safe. Sir, are you okay? And he responds to me?
Yes.
Okay. First thing I want to do is go ahead and get him on the monitor. I will probably pace pads at this time because you told me that he was quite bradycardic. I'm going to let him know that I'm going to be placing some pads on his chest. I will also put a 5-lead on too, just so we can get a good look at what's going on. Okay? I'm going to go ahead and turn my monitor on. At this time I'd get an IV started. His blood pressure was quite low, and probably put him on some oxygen, maybe like 2 liters nasal cannula. Actually, it was 88%. Let's do 12 liters with a non-rebreather. Looks like we have a third degree heart block. Due to his instability and the way that his skin was looking, I want to go ahead and pace my patient. At this time, I'd let him know that we're going to be delivering electricity in his chest, that it might be a little bit painful. So we're going to go ahead and give him something to take a little bit of the edge off. Since I have that IV in place, I can go ahead and do that. And at this time, I'm going to turn my pacer on. I'll set my rate at about 70 to start with, and go ahead and turn up my milliamps until I have capture. So I'm going to keep my fingers on his pulse here and just see if I can go ahead and capture.
You've achieved mechanical capture.
Okay, so I feel a rate of 70 here. I see a rate of 70 here. I'm going to increase my milliamps just by 5 and continue to pace my patient, monitoring my patient's blood pressure and skin signs.
Your patient suddenly slumps over and becomes unresponsive.
Okay, does he have a pulse?
No.
All right, right here I see VFib on the monitor. I'm going to start CPR right away while I am charging to defibrillate at an energy of 200 joules. So continue CPR. Okay, I'm clear, you're clear, everyone is clear. Going to go ahead and shock. Continuing again, CPR. I want to drop an OPA and start bagging my patient with a BVM at 15 liters high flow O2. I already have an IV in place, so on my next round of CPR, I'm ready to give my epinephrine, 1 to 10,000. I want to start looking around and looking for possible causes as to why my patient coded in the first place, also known as H's and T's. I want to check his sugar, I want to check its pupils, I want to look around, see if there's any medications anywhere. Just checking and maintaining why my patient may have possibly coded.
2 minutes have passed.
2 minutes have passed. I'm going to check for a pulse.
There is no pulse.
It looks like asystole, but I want to turn up my gain, and I also want to check and make sure all my leads are on and the pads haven't come off.
The leads are on.
Okay, so again, we're going to continue CPR here. Okay, no shock at this time. Maintain CPR. At this time, I'm going to give a milligram of epinephrine, 1 to 10,000. I can give that every 3 to 5 minutes. I want to go ahead and think about putting in an advanced airway, hooking up end tidal to the end of that, making sure that we're maintaining a sufficient end tidal with our CPR so we know we're doing sufficient CPR for 2 minutes and circulating that medication.
And 2 minutes have passed.
Okay, I see that I have a rhythm change. I'm going to check for a pulse again.
You do have a pulse.
I have a pulse. The feeling and looking at the monitor, I see that it does match the monitor. It looks like sinus bradycardia, so my patient is in ROSC. Is my patient able to follow commands? Sir, can you squeeze my hand?
No.
No, okay. What is my patient's blood pressure?
Your patient's blood pressure is 70 over 50.
70 over 50. I want to open up and that fluid bolus and try and get a fluid bolus so I can get my patient's blood pressure above 90. If my fluid bolus does not work at about 1,000, what I would do is think about a dopamine or an epinephrine infusion. My dopamine's going to be 5 to 20. And then what I want to do is make sure, because my patient's unable to follow commands, I want to start thinking about hypothermic protocols at a temperature of 32 to 36. I want to maintain my end tidal, 35 to 45. I want to do a 12 lead so I can see whether the code was cardiac in nature. I already talked about my H's and T's. And I want to make sure I'm maintaining an O2 saturation above 96% for my ROSC protocol. If my 12 lead showed that it was cardiac in nature, then I want to make sure that I'm taking my patient to a cardiac cath lab capability hospital.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for hanging out for Dynamic Cardio video number 1. That one was pretty straightforward. You can watch it again, follow along with the grading sheet and make sure I did my job appropriately. The next one's a little more tricky. That's our Dynamic Cardiology video 2, and the link for that one's below. Feel free to watch.